My favorite movie so far this year is an unusual film called I Blame Society, and we're joined now by the star, the director, the writer, Gillian Horvat. Gillian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sean. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm really glad you liked the movie.
I really did. This movie blew my mind. The tone that you're going for here in this movie is so unique. It's very funny, and then you're going then in this horror direction because your character is somebody who's been told that she'd make a great killer, and she decides that as part of a documentary she wants to explore that idea.
That's accurate. That is what happens. I'm really glad that you liked the tone and that you picked up on the kind of balance that we were trying to make between comedy and horror and satire and all of those things. Definitely trying to hit all the bases if we can, and to keep people on the edge of their seat, not knowing whether what was going to happen next would be something funny or something disturbing.
And yeah, and you pulled that off perfectly. And there's so many really very funny scenes here as you're kind of plumbing the depths of this character and she's trying to figure out what her limits are. She begins by just doing a little bit of shoplifting, and then she graduates to breaking and entering. And the giddiness, the glee that she feels at pulling these things off, it's very, as an audience member, you're just kind of drawn to like how excited she is about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely was an acting stretch. I definitely have I don't have any personal criminal experience, and I didn't feel like going method and really trying any of these things in order to recreate them on film. But I do enjoy pushing buttons and being provocative and stirring trouble in my own way. So I understood that feeling. I understood that feeling of, I guess for me, the example is like, being at a party, and remember those parties, and, you're in a conversation with somebody that's like boring or benign, or somebody's being condescending or stupid, and you just like insert something in there very deadpan and just, to stir and see what happens. And I do that all the time. I can't help it. And so I think that kind of typifies probably my approach to filmmaking as well. Like I can't help stirring the pot, and I can't help poking things and trying to, and just seeing what happens. But I think there's a role for people like me in society, whether you like the kerfuffle or not, it definitely promotes an interesting conversation.
Well, that's so interesting too, because what you're doing throughout the movie, you're escalating things, you're upping the ante. It keeps going up until it reaches a point where we're kind of like, we're with you, and then all of a sudden, oh, she just really murdered somebody. Hang on a second.
It's true. I mean, I think that I feel like that's always a great point in movies where you're with a certain character, and then there's something happens in the film that challenges your complicity. But I feel like, as an audience member, you can kind of, because it's fiction, you can occupy several subject positions of being like, I don't approve of what she's doing, but I really am enjoying watching her do this,
Exactly. Or there's that brilliant scene where you're overhearing this conversation, this guy's talking, and he's just the worst human being on the planet. He's on the worst date ever. It's just completely awful. And as an audience member, we're like, please kill him. Kill that guy.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the film was a great opportunity for me to exercise a lot of my anger about a million different things, not just the inequities in filmmaking that people face, but also the healthcare industry and challenges there. And so that character kind of allows me to channel some aggression that I feel every time I look at my health insurance premiums, or every time my crazy things happen with my coverage, like I get like bumped onto Medi-Cal without my permission, or things like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I stew about it a lot.
That's a great scene. And the facial expressions, we're just so with you in that moment.
Exactly. And that actor is fantastic. His name is Devin Gray, and he just did a really brilliant job in that scene.
It's his job to make us hate him, and he does a great job.
I know, and he's not a hateable person at all in real life. He's a good person, actually. He's a really good person.
Going back to our previously about identifying with characters who are doing terrible things, one of my transformative experiences watching movies was The Talented Mr. Ripley, and finding myself at the end of that movie actually rooting for Matt Damon to get away. It taught me like the way that a movie can manipulate you. For the first time, that was my realization like that. Have you ever had a realization that where you're watching a movie and you shouldn't maybe identify with the character, but you're with them anyway?
I think that I never feel like it's wrong for to root for the bad guy. I think that is, in the example of The Talented Mr. Ripley, you're rooting for him for a good reason, because he is just as smart and as talented and charming as any of the people that he wants to be a part of their social circle. But it's something arbitrary and unfair, like class, that keeps him out. And so I think that in one way you're rooting for a murderer, which is not socially approved of, but you're also rooting for an underdog, which is. So I think a film like that plays with those things. I feel comfortable just rooting for really awful people in films because I find them entertaining, and I think that there's something cathartic about identifying with antisocial behavior, like a film that I really love that is totally not okay in some people's eyes and absolutely disgusting is something like Bad Lieutenant. But I love that movie, and I love Harvey Keitel's character in it, and I find it really exhilarating to watch him, and exhilarating to see him do awful things. And I don't think it says anything about me other than that I can draw a healthy distinction between what's real and what's not real.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. When it comes to your character, people can easily relate to this notion of what you've got going on with the character of Stalin, the character you've nicknamed Stalin. Everybody's had that person that they just don't like, and the opportunity to then enact upon them a vengeance. You think about it, maybe you've even planned it to a point, but you don't go through with it. And then you're watching this movie and you're watching Gillian actually go through with it, and you're kind of like, yes, in the back of your head.
No, totally. And I think that's, it's a good, like we said, like catharsis and exorcism of those socially unhealthy feelings to allow it to come through that way. In real life, I'm really not a vindictive person. I wouldn't get any thrill out of watching, like, at taking anybody down or doing anything like that. I think I'm more self-centered, and I just couldn't be bothered to do anything with them. What I'd really like to do is, to achieve something in my field, to succeed on my terms. And then I think that would be enough of a vindication for me, just doing well. And then, maybe like a minor fantasy about them, like stewing and just, like shaking their fists that, everything was going great for me, but nothing more harmful than that.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to bring up about what Gillian begins to do, the upping of the ante and that continuously pushing her own boundaries. One of the things I find interesting about our entire society is that it's all such a thin thread that we have between complete chaos and a normal life. anybody could just drive on the wrong side of the road at any moment. Anybody could just decide tomorrow to walk over and murder their neighbor. They just don't do it. And this movie is kind of reminded me of that thought of, well, she just kind of just decides this, and she finds that it's actually rather easy to just go do this.
That's a really great point. I mean, I do think it's so easy. You know, we could at any minute snap, and you know, especially like, I find you're like talking about cars really compelling, because we are just like driving these, you know, 2,000-pound weapons around anywhere. I mean, it's so dangerous, and there's a social contract that we've all undertaken, that we're going to use the roads to, you know, get to where we need to be to make money, and not to kill people. I think that there's very little that's holding us in check. It's just our self-interest, you know, that we wouldn't want to go to prison, that we wouldn't want people to be mad at us. And that's all. You know, we're really only holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah, I mean, you walk into a store to like Gillian did, just pick up a bottle of something, stick it in your pocket, and walk out. I mean, anybody can do that.
They can, and they do. You know, like, people are always transgressing and breaking boundaries. But I mean, yeah, and you think about, there is actually like a rather high level of violence in our society, and it's normalized to a certain extent.
And that's
we're at like this is an acceptable level, but you know, it's arbitrary.
Right, it is, and that's so true. And this movie kind of demonstrates the mundanity of finding just the level of evil that you want to be, consistently raising what that level of evil is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people who are like extremely evil, but it's not illegal. You know, people who are just, you know, mild-mannered sociopaths who just, you know, ruin people's lives, tell secrets, spread gossip, hurt, you know, insult people, hurt people, just all like the regular things that are totally not against the law, that happen, you know, every day in friend groups and in families and stuff. I mean, it's that's an extremely potent level of evil that nobody's really figured out how to control.
And yeah, that brings me around to the title of the movie. I Blame Society. I mean, it's kind of the very all-encompassing title when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely meant it to be somewhat vague. That it's something that you could imagine the main character saying, and also kind of problematizing that in the sense of, you know, definitely she blames, you know, other people and power structures for her problems, but she also is responsible, and I don't think she'd ever want to take responsibility for it. I don't think she ever would. And that's kind of part of the narcissism that allows her to do what she does.
Gillian, I love this movie. It's my favorite movie I've seen so far in 2021, and I've been recommending it to everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for this movie.